What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we're going to be checking out the Transformers Legacy United Deluxe class Infernac universe, Nucleous, a character who is fueled by Nucleon, which is an energy source that can be used by other Transformers to help aid them in battle, although if used for too long, it can slowly but surely begin to wear away their ability to transform, which I thought was seriously an awesome backstory to kind of weave into this guy, especially as he is a unique original character specifically designed for the Legacy lineup. So as we check out the details, by far the money shot of this figure would have to be this brand new head sculpt. When it comes to sculpting, I think this is looking sick, especially with the integration of that triple mohawk. I should imagine this guy will have no issues in rocking out across the Cybertronian battlefield, and a design trait which appears to have been carried over into all of these Armorizers would be the return of the hollow chest. Now you could call this lazy designing or intentional, but I think it's pretty sweet that the whole backstory surrounding these characters is that they're all supposed to be sparklers. It really does beg the question, what exactly powerizes an Armorizer? But when it does come to detail, much like some of the previous Rock Lords, this guy has been sculpted front side to back, which I think is looking insanely cool. As we flip this sucker around to the back, because he does share the core engineering with Nucleous, upon first glance he will appear to be very similar in design, although surprisingly, Hasbro and Takara Tomy have resurfaced a lot of some of the external panels, which I thought was pretty awesome. And a detail which I'm a big fan of is that he's also packing the serrated rock edges on the back of his arm. So not only is this guy an Armorizer, but literally any part of him could be used as a weapon. I would imagine he would have no issues in slicing the head clean off a Transformer. Another great original take on that old Rock Lords concept, and definitely a subline which personally I would love to see continued, because I think we can all agree and say that these Armorizers have to be by far some of the most distinctive designs we have seen in the mainline for a very long time. Now, as we check out his accessories, Nucleus is rocking this really awesome spiked club. Now, when it comes to a design, I think this is looking sick, although one thing I've noticed when it comes to these Rock Lords is that all of their weapons for the most part appear to be quite primitive in their design. We're dealing with elemental creatures which are made up of rock, so at least to myself, it makes sense not to see them pack in fusion cannons nor ion blasters, so I thought that was a really sweet touch. But of course, in true Transformers fashion, this is more than meets the eye, because the second you spin this sucker to the top, he is packing two dual boosters, so I should imagine he will have no issues in also blasting them to bits. Now, checking out what moves this guy can throw down despite being based on a rock, surprisingly he is quite articulated. So, to begin with, the head is on a swivel, although much like Nucleous, you will require the power of Great Skull to get that looking left to right. The shoulders, however, can rotate all the way around with no issue at all. They can then kick out to the side. He's packing a bicep cut and elbow bend, ball-jointed wrists, which in addition to rotating all the way around, can also hinge back and forwards, which I have found to be amazing, especially when posing this guy with his pretty sick weapon. When it comes here to the waist, this also can rotate all the way around with no issue. The hips can officially bend to 90, although due to the brand new knee design, not gonna lie to you guys, they are kind of restrictive, and once you reach to a certain point, 9 times out of 10, this panel will pop clean off. Although they can kick backwards surprisingly even further than they could forwards, they're also able to kick outwards, which I do think is pretty decent. He's also packing a really awesome thigh swivel, and in addition to that, one point of articulation which I'm in love with would be the knee bend. So check this out, this is only a single joint, although it allows for a supreme range. I mean, that is awesome, although I wouldn't even say that's the money shot of the articulation, because as we check out the ankles, in addition to rocking forwards and rocking backwards, they can also rock side to side in both directions. So overall, this guy is definitely packing a punch, although to see what Nucleus is truly capable of, now let's put him through the pose test. Now, rocking on with some size comparisons, first up we have the Legacy United Nucleous, and to my surprise, Nucleus is actually an extensive retool of Nucleous. They have pretty much resurfaced everything about this guy, which I really think is kind of unnecessary. I mean, to be honest with you, I would have taken a repaint and a brand new head over tiny areas which you probably won't even notice are different. Instead, I think Hasbro would have been better off spending that money when it came round to the Legacy United sideburn. Maybe they could have put the budget into making the vehicle mode slightly more accurate. Instead, instead of retooling areas which I really don't think you're even going to notice unless you scrutinize these two designs. Although, with that being said, none of the Armorizers up until this point have been able to top the sheer awesomeness that we saw from the Infernac universe Shard. Sticking to that universe, we are now dropping down to core class, so here we have Boulder Crash, who by himself I thought was packing a pretty strong design. For a comparison against two of my favourite Legacy United Deluxes so far, we have the Animated Universe Bumblebee and the G1 Universe Autobot Gears. For a Voyager size comparison, we have the Studio Series 86 Ironhide, and finally the legendary Earthrise Optimus Prime. And I am left wondering, between these two characters, who would come out on top? Would the Infernacons be able to dethrone the leader of the Autobots? So, time to get stuck into this sucker's transformation, and I won't lie to you guys, it is far from a rocky road. So, to begin with, you are going to take the foot and begin to compress this against the shin pad like that. Repeat all of the same steps here for this side, so make sure that that does slap against that shin pad. Then for the next step, we can then proceed to combine these two baddies directly down the middle. Then what you'll do is spin this sucker around to the back. Now, these two tabs are going to slide into these two slots, so begin to make use out of those amazing knee joints until they do snap there into place. Then for the next step, we can come here to the hands. You are going to want to rotate that section there like that, and then what you'll do is make use out of that ball joint and slide this section here inwards. So let's do the same here for this side. Take a hold of that fist, rotate this here around, grab a hold of that ball joint, and then begin to kind of pull this section here backwards. Then for the next step, we're going to take the shoulders and begin to disconnect these away from the core of the robot. So let's do the same here for this side. Once that's complete, we can then take this section and begin to kind of shift it here upwards like that. Hopefully that should then allow it so we can take the entire chest unit of this guy and begin to kind of extend it here all of the way up exactly like that. Now for the next step, what you're going to do is pretty much take these shoulder joints and begin to kind of compress these here inwards. Now at the same time, there are some slots here on the underside that are going to slide into these tabs, so just make sure that those there do line up exactly like this. Let's do the same here for this sucker, so slide that bad boy there into place. Then what you'll do is take these wheels and begin opening them out until they do click into place. So let's do the same here for this side, and then for one final step, at least when it comes here to the front end of the vehicle, we're going to take that awesome head sculpt and flip this bad boy all the way inside, and then snap the front end of the vehicle into place. Now you are pretty much left with the core vehicle mode, although there are some pretty sweet finishing touches. Here is where you are going to want to whack out this bad boy, and surprisingly it does split directly down the middle. Now to begin with, we are going to keep a hold of this section, the one which does have the longer post at the base, because this is going to slide into a tiny little notch here on the back of the vehicle. So make sure that's slid all the way in, and then what we can do is snap that tab and port into the back piece of the vehicle exactly like this. And then for the final step, here is where we are going to whack out the second part. Now all that happens here is that that big tab is going to slide into that slot. Once that sucker is pegged into place, here we have Nucleous fully transformed. Now, zooming across the multiverse would be Nucleous, this time round fully transformed into a full-blown vehicle, which I think is a great update, because if I throw your minds back to the original Rock Lords, they would transform into rocks and boulders. So, I won't lie to you guys, if I was battling it against the Autobots or the Decepticons, I definitely know what vehicle mode I would want to transform into, and it would definitely be this bad boy. When it comes to detail, I think the design looks sick, you know, much like some of the previous Rock Lords. He has been sculpted front side to back, which is looking brilliant, and much like the comparison when in robot mode, surprisingly has been completely resurfaced in comparison to Magnus. Although the clear money shot of this mode would have to be that now he is packing these double boosters, which I won't lie to you guys, I've always found these Rock Lords in general to be very Mad Max inspired, and this to me screams Mad Max. These things are looking sick. So again, if he does somehow find his way being pounded by the enemy forces, he can smack on those turbo boosters and turbocharge himself through that multiversal portal. So, now let's check out the big gimmick when it comes here to these Armorizers, how exactly we can slice and dice them in order to weaponize other Transformers. So, for the first step, you are going to want to come here to the shoulder and slide this piece here clean off. Then for the next step, you are going to want to spin that sucker upside down and then begin to take some of the outer armor, and this too is also detachable. We can then flip Nucleus around to the back, take the entire backpack, and this too can also be removed and kind of transformed into a full-blown shield. For the next step, here is where we are now going to whack out the legs, so much like the arms, we can also begin to remove some of the outer external armor, and then for the next step, what you can then do is take a hold here of the kneecap, and this will slide away from the internal skeleton. until you are left with a core skeleton which looks exactly like this. Now, I won't lie to you guys, this is my biggest issue when it has come to some of these Armorizers, because I don't think they're nowhere near as effective as some of the weaponizers which we did see from the amazing War for Cybertron line. This entire chunk here is useless. You cannot use this at all in order to weaponize any of the other Transformers, and that is also an issue we've seen across the board when it comes here to some of these Rock Lords, although most noticeably with Magnus and Nucleus, because unlike Shard, you can't even take the knee and remove the entire limb. Instead, you are left with an internal skeleton, which I won't lie to you guys, I think looks super ugly, and it's also really limiting, especially when it comes to kind of swapping components between all of the Rock Lords. I'm hoping that if Hasbro do decide to continue the weaponizers going into the next main line, that they can kind of revert back to basics, to what we did see from the War for Cybertron lineup, because I am not a big fan of this play pattern. And another thing I also want to mention is that any of the limbs which are removable from this guy don't really create for all that interesting combinations. You know, unlike Shard, some of her limbs could be transformed into full-blown weapons, whereas unfortunately that is just not the case when it comes here to Nucleus. So forget the Transformers leaving the Nucleon for too long. I think it's more so a case if the Transformers want to be seen dead wearing Nucleon. Now, rocking our way through some vehicle mode comparisons, first up we have the Legacy United Magnus. Now, to my surprise, Nucleus has been just as retooled in vehicle mode as he was in robot mode. They have literally resurfaced this guy, and despite me being a big fan of the brand new weapon integration, I can't lie to you guys, it does kind of suck that he does again lose that kind of weaponizer capability where you could transform that mallet into a full-blown battering ram. The whole idea of these Armorizers are that they are supposed to be kind of customizable when it comes to design, so as I said previously, I really am hoping that if Hasbro are to continue these guys in the future, that they can kind of go back to basics when it comes to the overall design of these. For another Rock Lord comparison, here we have the Core Class Boulder Crash. Now, despite Nucleus packing in the design department, I can't lie to you guys, I would love more than anything to see this mold fully redecoed in the same color scheme that we have here for Boulder Crash. That internal burning magma effect I don't think will ever get old, and it's something which I'm hoping we can see make a return in the future. Now, despite me absolutely singing the praises of the designs of the other Armorizers, I can't even lie to you guys, none of them even come close when in comparison to the queen of the Armorizers, Infernac universe, Shard. She is by far the best out of the bunch. Her design is amazing in both robot and helicopter mode, and she also works the best when it does come to being a weaponizer. So you guys let me know down below, out of the 4 Rock Lords we've seen so far, which is your personal favourite? And to quickly run through a few general size comparisons, first up we have the Minibot G1 Universe Autobot Gears, the Legacy Animated Universe Bumblebee, and I do wonder between these two who is packing the better turbo boosters. You guys again, let me know what you think down below. The Studio Series 86 Voyager class battle damaged Ironhide, so despite Nucleus only being a deluxe class, he is definitely packing when it comes to scale, at least here for vehicle mode. And then finally, the legendary, the OG, the Earthrise Optimus Prime. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Transformers Legacy United Deluxe Class Infernac Universe Nucleus. Overall, when it comes to design, equally as impressive as the previous Armorizers. I'm always a big fan of when Hasbro brings some original characters to the forefront of the main line, and this guy definitely is a prime example of that. The only real big issue I have with him would be pretty much the same issue that I had with Magnus, and that would be that he's really not all that functional when it does come to being a weaponizer. At the end of the day, you're then left with a huge chunk of robot which is pretty much useless, and the components that you can remove really don't turn into full-blown weapons, so it is a shame to see these kind of be a step back when in comparison to what we did see for Transformers War for Cybertron, but the robot mode and the vehicle mode I think looks sick, and if you were a big fan of the previous updated Rock Lords, then I do think you're really going to like this guy's design. I would love to get your thoughts on him down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? I want to thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, transform and roll out!